Welcome back. Tonight, we drift through the sleepy streets of feudal Japan. So wherever you are, however your day has been, you have nothing to do now but rest. There are no twists tonight, nothing to follow, nothing you need to remember in the morning. A city of cedar eaves and paper screens, growing still beneath a soft mountain mist, will drift slowly, in no hurry to be anywhere at all. If these journeys help you rest, you're welcome to follow along, but only if you'd like to. And if you're listening now, leave the name of your city and the time where you are. Wherever you're listening from, you're in good company tonight. So let yourself settle. Let your shoulders soften and let your eyes close whenever they're ready. Breathe in slowly. And let it go. There's no need to stay awake for any of this. Just let the streets of feudal Japan come to you. The story of Japan's first army capital begins with a quiet coastal valley. In the 12th century, leaders did not choose Kamakura for its wealth. They chose it for its shape. The town sits in a natural bowl. Steep, thick woods wrap around three sides of the town. The open ocean guards the fourth side. It is a perfect, ready-made fortress. You can stand on the beach today and see exactly why they stayed. The dark green ridges rise like high walls against the sky. Early samurai leaders saw safety in those dense forests. They built their homes where the land naturally protected them. The land shaped every street and shrine. Even now, the town feels tucked away from the wider world. The ocean breeze sweeps up through the valley. It rustles the old trees on the ridges. The landscape itself shaped the course of a nation. Farther west, the ancient capital of Kyoto holds a different kind of memory. In the 15th century, a fierce war swept through the streets. The fighting burned the old city to the ground. It completely erased the neat, ancient grid of avenues. When the smoke finally cleared, the people had to start over. They did not wait for rulers to rebuild. Instead, merchants formed their own free blocks. They called these walled neighborhoods machi. Each block became a self-reliant village within the city limits. Neighbors banded together to defend their homes and share food. They built heavy gates and dug deep trenches. This desperate choice changed the map forever. The modern city still follows the shapes of those old merchant blocks. You can feel that tight shared layout when you walk down the narrow lanes today. The spirit of those free neighborhoods survived the ashes. Sometimes a town simply vanishes beneath the water. In the same era, the busy port of Kusado Sengen sat near the coast. It was a lively place filled with traders and wooden ships. But the nearby Ashida River was restless. Over time, heavy mud choked the riverbed. the water slowly rose and swallowed the whole town. The flood buried the wooden roofs and busy docks under deep mud. The town was completely erased from local maps. People eventually forgot it ever existed. Yet the thick river mud acted like a perfect seal. It kept the sunken village in quiet darkness for centuries. In the 20th century, workers finally found the lost port. They found everyday objects resting exactly where people left them. The river had kept the town frozen in time. It is a gentle reminder of how quickly nature can reclaim a place. Down the coast, another port town took control of its own fate. The merchant hub of Sakai grew very wealthy in the 16th century. The town acted almost like a free city-state. The locals dug a deep, wide moat around their borders. They built tall dirt walls to keep outsiders away. Their power came from a strict hold on imported firearms. Trading ships brought new goods and strange ideas to the docks. The merchants grew rich and ruled themselves without a lord. They enjoyed a rare freedom in a very strict world. But this freedom could not last forever. A powerful warlord eventually saw their wealth as a threat. He marched his forces down, and brought the proud merchants to heel. The deep moats could not stop the changing times. Still, the old trading spirit never truly left those quiet coastal streets. That same warlord built a massive fortress to secure his power. He raised a Zuchi castle high on a hill overlooking Lake Biwa. It was a brilliant, tall structure meant to last for generations. But just 3 years after it was finished, disaster struck. The great castle burned down in a sudden, strange fire. The ruin was absolute. This single event shifted the entire center of Japanese power. Leaders moved their focus away from the lake and toward the coast. Today, only the massive stone bases remain on that quiet hill. You can walk among the mossy boulders in the early morning light. The burned remains of heavy wooden pillars still rest in the earth. The empty stones feel deeply peaceful now. They sit under the tall trees, watching the calm water below. It is a silent monument to a grand vision that vanished almost overnight. In that same city, the next ruler decided to protect the capital in a highly unusual way. Toyotomi Hideyoshi wanted to shield the area from outside attacks. He did not build a normal stone wall. Instead, he ordered dozens of temples to pack up and move. He moved them all to the eastern edge of the city. This created a massive new district called Teramachi, or Temple Town. The heavy wooden gates and thick stone walls formed a hidden barrier. If an invading army approached, they would have to fight through a maze of sacred grounds. The monks and their sturdy buildings became a literal shield for the city. You can still stroll down this long, straight avenue today. The tall temple walls line the street, casting long shadows in the afternoon sun. It feels like a place of deep peace, hiding its true defensive purpose. Just a short walk away, the Eastern Gion district tells a story of water and stone. For centuries, the Kamo River was wild and restless. It often flooded the banks and washed away homes. The eastern shore was a dangerous, muddy floodplain where few people wanted to build. In the 17th century, leaders finally decided to tame the rushing water. They built massive, sloping stone walls along the riverbed. These heavy walls locked the river into a safe, steady channel. With the flood risk gone, the empty eastern bank quickly changed. Elegant wooden tea houses sprang up along the newly stabilized shore. The area blossomed into the city's premier entertainment quarter. Today you can sit by the calm water at dusk. Paper lanterns glow softly from the wooden balconies above. The gentle sound of the tamed river still drifts through the narrow, willow-lined streets. Far to the east, the sprawling city of Tokyo began as a punishment. In the late 16th century, it was just a swampy, tiny fishing village called Edo. A powerful rival wanted to weaken Tokugawa Ieyasu. He forced the ambitious lord to move to this worthless, muddy land. The area was full of reeds, bugs, and tidal flats. It seemed like a terrible place to build a capital. But Ieyasu saw hidden promise in the quiet marshes. He accepted the poor land and began a massive change. He ordered his men to drain the swamps and dig canals. Slowly, the damp earth became solid ground. The tiny fishing hamlet grew into a busy center of power. Today, millions of people walk across what used to be marshland. The neon lights and tall buildings hide a very humble origin. A deliberate insult accidentally created one of the world's greatest cities. The heart of that new capital required an incredible amount of labor. The modern business district of Marunouchi now holds sleek glass towers and busy train stations. But in the 17th century, this area was entirely underwater. It was a shallow body of water, known as the Hibiya Inlet. The shogun needed solid land to build sprawling estates for his most trusted lords. He ordered workers to level nearby hills and carry the dirt to the bay. Laborers hauled thousands of baskets of earth to fill in the shallow water. They built heavy stone walls to hold the new ground in place. The massive earth-moving project slowly pushed the ocean back. The grand samurai mansions that rose there set a tone of wealth and power. Even today, that exact same patch of reclaimed land remains the financial center of the country. The geography was entirely manufactured. Protecting the shogun required a fortress of impossible scale. The massive stone walls of Edo Castle were not just built for defense. They were a clever financial weapon. The shogun used a strict tribute system to construct the sprawling compound. He forced rival lords from across the country to supply the materials. These lords had to cut giant granite boulders and transport them to the capital. They paid for the fleets of wooden barges and the exhausted crews. The sheer cost of moving these massive stones drained their local treasuries. By the time the walls were finished, the rival lords had no money left to fund rebellions. You can still see these gigantic rough-hewn boulders resting in the palace moats today. Some stones even bear the carved crests of the lords who hauled them. The beautiful sloping walls are a masterpiece of both engineering and political control. The greatest threat to the growing city was not an army, but water. The mighty Tone River originally flowed straight into the bay, causing terrible floods. To protect the capital, the shogun ordered an almost impossible feat. He decided to physically bend the massive river. The project was called the Tonegawa Tosen. For decades, workers dug new channels and built huge dirt walls. They slowly forced the wide, muddy river to turn eastward. Eventually, the water emptied into the Pacific Ocean instead of the bay. This incredible effort saved the city from ruin. It also opened up vast tracts of marshland for rich rice farming. The landscape of the entire Kanto region changed forever. When you cross the wide, quiet river today, you are looking at a manufactured path. The water only flows there because thousands of hands guided it through the dark earth. As the settlement expanded, the landscape naturally divided its people. The shogun strictly separated the population using the local geography. He placed the samurai class on the high, breezy hills, known as the Yamanote. These high areas offered clean air and beautiful views. The merchants and artisans were sent down into the low, swampy valleys called the Shitamachi. The lower town was crowded, damp, and prone to fires. This physical split created a deep cultural divide. The high ground became quiet and refined. The low ground became loud, vibrant, and busy. Amazingly, this old geographic divide still shapes the modern city. The Western Hills remain home to expensive real estate and quiet neighborhoods. The Eastern Lowlands still hold the bustling, working-class spirit of the old merchant blocks. You can feel the shift in the atmosphere just by walking down a long, sloping hill. Sometimes the government moved its people for different reasons. In the mid-17th century, the busy entertainment district sat right in the center of town. Leaders decided this lively area was too distracting. They ordered the entire district to move to the isolated outskirts, a place called Yoshiwara. It was a quiet area, surrounded by peaceful fields and willow trees. The next year, the devastating Mereki fire swept through the old city center. The flames cleared away the remaining old buildings. This disaster actually sped up the government's grand plan. It left a blank slate for a completely redesigned city. Planners laid out wider, safer streets to prevent future fires. The entertainment quarter stayed out in the quiet fields, growing into a famous walled enclave. The tragedy of the fire simply paved the way for a more organized modern capital to rise from the ashes. Far to the west, another fortress was built to watch over the roads. The brilliant white walls of Himeji Castle sit high atop a steep forested hill. The builders did not choose this spot just for the beautiful view. The hill was a vital choke point on the main western highway. The Tokugawa government needed to monitor anyone traveling toward the old imperial capital. By placing the massive castle right here, they could easily block any Western lords trying to march east. The towering wooden structure stands over the vast plain below. Its bright white plaster shines like a beacon in the midday sun. The winding dirt highway had to pass right under its watchful gaze. Today the castle remains perfectly whole, untouched by war or fire. It still looks out over the valley, a silent guardian, waiting for an army that will never come. Further down the coast, a different city built its power on food instead of stone. Osaka earned the proud title of the Kitchen of Japan. The city sits on a perfect network of rivers and canals. These waterways connected the inland capital directly to the Seto Inland Sea. Lords from all over the country shipped their tax rice here. They built massive wooden storehouses along the dirt banks of the Nakanoshima district. Dozens of classic flat-bottom boats moored along the riverfront every morning. The air smelled of grain, sea salt and damp wood. The city grew very rich by feeding the rest of the nation. Today, modern bridges cross those same busy rivers. The old wooden storehouses are gone, replaced by tall buildings. But the water still flows through the heart of the city. The rivers still carry the quiet memory of 1,000 wooden boats. Moving that precious rice safely was a constant challenge. The coastal waters could be rough and dangerous for small transport boats. To solve this, the government dug a beautiful canal through the town of Kurashiki. This calm, narrow waterway allowed flat-bottom boats to bypass the wild ocean. They could carry heavy bales of tax rice directly from the fields to the government storehouses. The canal was a brilliant, quiet public work. Today, weeping willows line the stone banks, dipping their green branches into the water. Stark white storehouses with black tile roofs still stand along the edge. The midday sun warms the old plaster walls. You can watch small wooden boats glide silently down the calm water. The canal no longer carries the nation's wealth. Instead, it preserves a perfect, peaceful slice of the 18th century, hidden away from the rushing modern world. In the far south, a different kind of harbor took shape. The city of Nagasaki has a unique, worldly history. This stems from a very specific fan-shaped man-made island called Dejima. In the 17th century, the government wanted to trade with the Portuguese and Dutch. But they also wanted to keep foreign ideas away from the mainland population. So they built this small island to isolate the foreign merchants. A single arched wooden bridge connected the trading post to the city. The Dutch lived in wooden warehouses lit by oil lamps, completely cut off from the rest of the country. This tiny, restricted space became Japan's only window to the outside world. The shape of the harbor changed to fit this strange arrangement. Today the city still feels different from the rest of the country. The legacy of that little fan-shaped island still lingers in the coastal air. Sometimes, public works were used as a weapon. On the vast Nobi Plain, 3 massive rivers often flooded the land. The government ordered the building of a huge network of levees to control the water. But they did not hire local workers. Instead, they forced the powerful Satsuma clan from the far south to manage the hard project. This was a clever trap. The government wanted to bankrupt the wealthy clan. They forced the southern samurai to spend their fortunes on flood control far from their home territory. Exhausted men built massive dirt dikes in the heavy rain. The grey, stormy skies watched them haul mud and stone for years. The project successfully tamed the rivers, but it ruined the clan. When you look at those green riverbanks today, they seem very peaceful. It is hard to imagine the bitter political struggle buried in the soil. Travelers on the main coastal highway needed protection from the elements. The famous Tokaido Road stretched for hundreds of miles along the ocean. The harsh sea breezes and blowing sand made the journey tiring. To help the weary travelers, the government purposely planted long avenues of pine trees. They called these shaded paths Matsunamiki. The tall, ancient pines acted as a natural windbreak. They cast long, cool shadows over the dirt path. People in classic woven hats could walk peacefully under the green canopy. The trees offered a quiet, sheltered space away from the glaring sun and biting wind. A few stretches of these old pine avenues still survive today. You can walk beneath the heavy branches and hear the wind rustling the needles. The trees still offer the exact same comfort they provided to tired travelers over 300 years ago. The coastal road was not the only way to travel. The government carved a second highway, the Nakasendo, straight through the dangerous Central Alps. They built this inland route as a safer choice to the coast. The coastal road was often washed out by fierce typhoons. It also required dangerous, deep river crossings. The mountain path was steep and narrow, but it was steady. The dirt trail wound through dense, dark cedar forests. In the winter, light snow covered the stones. Moonlight filtered through the tall trees, guiding travelers through the quiet valleys. The journey was long, but the mountains offered shelter from the fierce coastal storms. Today, you can still hike sections of this old alpine highway. The air is crisp and smells of pine needles. The deep silence of the forest feels exactly as it did centuries ago, far from the crashing ocean waves. Another famous road was shaped by a simple lack of money. A grand shrine was built in Nikko to honor the first Tokugawa shogun. Wealthy lords from all over the country donated heavy bronze lanterns to decorate the tomb. But one fairly poor daimyo could not afford such a costly gift. Instead of metal, he offered something living. He planted thousands of young cedar saplings along the path to the shrine. He hoped they would grow to protect the road. Today, those little saplings form a towering 35-kilometer avenue of massive cedar trees. The long, straight road is lined by giant trunks that reach into the misty sky. Soft morning light filters through the dense green canopy. The poor lord's humble tribute outlasted all the costly bronze lanterns. He by chance created one of the most beautiful living monuments in the entire country. Deep in the mountains, being alone created a unique way of life. The remote alpine valley of Takayama was surrounded by towering peaks. It was so difficult to reach that the government claimed the town directly for itself. They did not want gold or rice. They wanted the valley's amazing timber. The thick pine forests provided the finest wood in the country. Because of this, the isolated town developed a very special style of carpentry. The local craftsmen became famous for their detailed, unpainted wooden houses. They built homes with heavy, overhanging eaves to handle the deep winter snow. The crisp morning sunlight highlights the beautiful grain of the old wood. Walking through the quiet streets today, you can see the skill in every joint and beam. The mountains kept the town hidden, but they also gave the people a craft that defined their entire history. In some cities, the streets themselves were designed as weapons. The Nagamachi district in Kanazawa is famous for its winding, dead-end alleys. This confusing layout was not an accident of poor planning. It was a clever defensive maze. The architects designed the narrow dirt paths to confuse invading armies. High yellow dirt walls topped with dark ceramic tiles line the curving streets. If attackers rushed in, they would quickly lose their way. The tight corners naturally funneled them into hidden ambushes. In the thick evening fog, the district feels like a beautiful puzzle. A single paper lantern casts long, strange shadows against the clay walls. Today, the maze is a peaceful place to wander. You can easily get lost among the quiet samurai houses. The streets still do exactly what they were built to do, but now they only capture curious travelers. Further north, a town used empty space to keep the peace. The beautiful town of Kakunodate was physically split by a large firebreak plaza. This wide, open area split the settlement into two different worlds. In the north, the samurai lived on wide, spacious streets, lined with blooming cherry trees. They had large walled estates and quiet gardens. In the south, the merchants lived in a dense, messy cluster of small wooden rooftops. Their narrow alleys were cramped and busy. The firebreak protected the wealthy northern half from the frequent fires of the southern half. This stark layout is perfectly preserved today. You can stand in the middle and see the sudden change. The spring daylight falls on the elegant weeping cherry trees on one side, and the tight merchant shops on the other. The town's history is written right into the dirt. Sometimes, a town is saved simply because it is forgotten. The old post town of Tsumago was a busy stop on the mountain highway. For centuries, tired travelers rested in its dark wooden inns. But in the 19th century, the new Meiji Railway was built. The train tracks completely went around the steep mountains. Almost overnight, the town's economy failed. The travelers left, and the streets grew quiet. The town was left in deep poverty. The people had no money to tear down the old buildings, or build modern ones. This economic disaster by chance froze the town in time. The Edo period architecture survived simply because no one could afford to change it. Today, grass grows softly near the dirt road. The slightly worn inns stand under a gloomy, overcast sky. The town remains a perfect, quiet window into the past, preserved by its own bad luck. In the heart of modern Tokyo, a vast green space holds a quiet memory. This is the site of Edo Castle. It was once the seat of absolute power in feudal Japan. Today, the original main keep is gone. It burned to the ground in the year 1657. The rulers never rebuilt it. Now, only its massive stone foundation remains. The dark, weathered blocks sit silently in the manicured gardens of the imperial palace. Sleek, glass skyscrapers rise in the distance. The contrast is striking. You can walk right up to these blackened stones. They feel heavy with history. The city simply grew up around them. It is a peaceful place now. The air feels still here. The foundation rests like an anchor in the center of the bustling capital. It reminds us that even the grandest structures can vanish. Only the earth and the stones endure. Far to the west, another fortress tells a story of immense wealth. The gates of Osaka Castle are built from gigantic stones. The largest of these is called the Octopus Stone. It weighs over 100 tons. A rival lord brought this colossal slab here. He wanted to prove his loyalty to the ruling shogun. He also wanted to show off his vast riches. Moving such a massive rock was a staggering task. Workers dragged it across the country with ropes and wooden rollers. Today it sits quietly in the gate wall. Modern tourists walk past it every day. Most do not realize how heavy it truly is. The flat granite surface is slightly weathered now. It feels cool to the touch. The stone dwarfs anyone who stands near it. It is a monument to human effort. It shows how power was built from the very bones of the earth. The massive walls of this same castle hold another secret. They were built using a special technique called burdock piling. Workers stacked gigantic, unshaped boulders on top of each other. They did not use any mortar to hold the stones together. This might seem careless, but it was actually brilliant. Japan is a land of frequent earthquakes. Rigid walls crack and fall when the ground shakes. These dry stone walls are different. They can flex and shift during a tremor. The loose boulders settle back into place when the shaking stops. Deep crevices run between the huge rocks. Small green weeds grow in these dark gaps today. Warm afternoon sunlight hits the sloping walls. The stones look natural, almost like a mountainside. The builders understood the earth. They knew they could not fight the moving ground. Instead, they built walls that could dance with the quakes. Further south, Kumamoto Castle features a different kind of stone defense. The walls here use a design meant to repel warriors. From a distance, the stone slopes look gentle and inviting. They start with a very shallow angle near the moat. This was a clever trap. Attackers would see the slope and think they could climb it. They would wade across the water and begin their ascent. But the shape of the wall changes as it rises. The gentle slope curves inward. Near the top, the stone face becomes completely vertical. It is impossible to climb. The sweeping concave curve is beautiful to look at. It resembles a folding fan opening up. Today the moat reflects the ancient stones in calm water. The design is a perfect blend of art and danger. The builders made the walls look soft. They hid the sheer drop in plain sight. The stone foundations of Hikone Castle solve another defensive problem. castle walls are huge, and they create dangerous blind spots. Defenders at the top could not always see the base of the wall. Attackers could hide right below them. To fix this, builders designed projecting corners. They called this clever layout Yokyagakari. The wall juts out in sharp angles. This shape allowed guards to look sideways along the flat stone faces. They could safely monitor the entire base of the sloping walls. No one could hide in the shadows. Today, you can see these sharp corners clearly. They give the castle a jagged, striking profile. The calm moat surrounds the base. The water mirrors the complex geometry of the stones. It is a quiet place now. The clever angles no longer protect against armies. They just catch the light in beautiful, unexpected ways as the sun sets. High above the stone foundations, the wooden buildings hold their own traps. Himeji Castle is famous for its pristine white plaster walls. It looks like a graceful white heron taking flight. But hidden within the elegant, overhanging eaves are narrow wooden chutes. These are called ishi otoshi. They angle sharply downward. Defenders use them to drop boiling water directly onto attackers. They could also drop heavy stones through the narrow gaps. The chutes are seamlessly integrated into the beautiful architecture. From the ground, they just look like small rectangular shadows. You have to look straight up to see the trapdoors. Bright daylight makes the white plaster glow. The deadly purpose is completely hidden by the elegant design. The castle is a masterpiece of deception. It wraps brutal defense in stunning beauty. The quiet wooden chutes still wait in the eaves. They are a silent reminder of a violent past. Matsuyama Castle takes this deception even further. The pristine white walls of this fortress look completely solid from the outside. They appear smooth and unbroken. But this is an illusion. The walls hide concealed gun ports called sema. Builders cut square and triangular holes through the thick wood. Then, they plastered over the holes on the outside. The plaster formed a thin, fragile skin. From the courtyard, the wall looked perfectly normal. But defenders inside knew exactly where the weak spots were. At a moment's notice, they could punch through the thin plaster. They could instantly open fire on surprised attackers. Today, you can walk down the interior wooden corridors. You can look out through the deep holes in the plaster. The modern city spreads out below. The hidden ports are open now. They frame peaceful views of the town instead of a battlefield. Sometimes, an entire floor was hidden from view. Matsumoto Castle is a striking building. It has a beautiful black and white wooden exterior. From the outside, the dark keep appears to have 5 stories. You can count the sweeping roofs from the calm moat. But the outside is lying. Hidden inside the structure is a secret third floor. It has no windows at all. From the courtyard, this floor looks like a solid band of black siding. It sits quietly between the lower and upper roofs. This dark, enclosed space was designed to hide armed soldiers. Enemy scouts could not see them from the ground. The hidden troops could rest and wait in the shadows. Today, you can climb the steep wooden stairs into this secret room. It is dim and quiet. The air smells of old pine. It feels like stepping into a hidden pocket of time. Inside the grand palaces, even the floors had secrets. Nijo Castle in Kyoto features famous wooden corridors. They are known as nightingale floors. When you step on the smooth floorboards, they chirp. The sound is high and sweet, like a small bird. For a long time, people thought this was an intentional alarm system. They believed it was built to warn guards of sneaking assassins. But modern studies reveal a different truth. The singing floors were just a beautiful accident. Centuries of aging wood caused the boards to warp slightly. The dry wood rubs against the old iron nails beneath the surface. This friction creates the gentle chirping sound. Sunlight streams through paper sliding doors today. The polished wooden corridor is peaceful and empty. You can walk softly down the hall. Every step brings a quiet song from the ancient wood. It is a lovely, unintended gift from time. Beyond the castle walls, the city of Kyoto had its own massive defenses. In the late 16th century, a powerful leader built a giant earthen wall. He called it the Odoi. It was 22 kilometers long. A deep moat ran right beside it. The wall completely encircled the ancient capital. It protected the city from floods and enemies. Over the centuries, the city grew and changed. People leveled most of the Great Wall to build houses and roads. But remnants of the massive earthwork still survive today. You can find them hidden in quiet residential neighborhoods. A modern paved alleyway might abruptly end at a steep mound. Dense green bamboo and soft moss cover the old dirt. A small historical marker usually stands nearby. Bicycles are parked next to the ancient ruins. The city simply swallowed the wall. It turned a grand military defense into a quiet backyard hill. The streets inside that wall were shaped by strict rules. Traditional Kyoto townhouses are called machiya. If you walk past them, you will notice something strange. The front of each house is incredibly narrow. The slatted wooden facades barely take up any space on the street. This was not a design choice. It was a reaction to the law. Property taxes were calculated by the width of the street frontage. A white house cost a fortune in taxes. So merchants built their homes to be very skinny at the front. But the houses hide deep, sprawling interiors. They stretch far back from the street. A tiny glimpse down a dark hallway reveals a surprise. The narrow passage opens into a bright green inner courtyard garden. The houses are like hidden worlds. They keep a quiet, modest face for the public. They save their light and space for the people inside. The wooden fronts of these townhouses also spoke a silent language. The windows are covered in beautiful wooden lattices. These are called koshi. The vertical slats vary in width and spacing from house to house. Historically, this specific pattern of wood was a code. It instantly told passers-by what the merchant inside sold. A certain rhythm of thick and thin wood meant the shop sold silk. A different spacing meant they sold rice. Another pattern advertised charcoal. You did not need to read a sign. You just had to look at the shadows on the window. Today, the beautifully crafted lattices still line the evening streets. Warm light spills from within the houses. The precise spacing of the wood creates a rhythmic pattern in the dark. The old shops may be gone now, but the wooden windows still remember the trades that built the city. In other towns, merchants had to protect their goods from a terrible threat. Fire was the greatest danger in these wooden cities. In Kawago you can still see the surviving merchant storehouses. They are called kura. These buildings look heavy and dark. Their walls are made of solid clay. The clay is up to a foot thick. The windows have heavy, stepped iron doors. These structures were engineered specifically to fight fire. If a blaze swept through the town, the owners would close the heavy doors. The thick clay and iron sealed the building completely airtight. The fire could not get inside. The lack of oxygen would suffocate any sparks. Today, these heavy black plaster buildings stand on modern streets. They look incredibly resilient next to contemporary glass shops. The massive fireproof doors are usually open now. They welcome visitors instead of fighting off the flames. The town of Kurashiki found a different way to protect its storehouses. The buildings here feature a striking geometric pattern. The walls are covered in flat, black slate tiles. A thick grid of raised white plaster holds the tiles in place. This is called the sea cucumber wall design. The rounded white plaster looks a bit like the sea creature. This beautiful pattern served a very practical purpose. The thick plaster grid prevented fire from spreading up the side of the building. The slate tiles protected the walls from heavy rain and water damage. The design kept the valuable goods inside safe and dry. Today you can see these walls in the historical quarter. The pristine white grids pop against the dark slate. The pattern is bold and clean. It is a perfect example of how early builders turned a simple safety feature into a lasting work of art. Sometimes, the merchants needed to hide things from the government itself. In Takayama, you can find traditional step chests. These beautiful wooden cabinets are called keidan dansu. They were built to function as actual staircases in the home. You could walk right up the polished wooden steps to the second floor. But the stairs held a secret. The wooden drawers contained hidden, false bottom compartments. These shallow spaces were designed to conceal important items. Merchants hid their account ledgers and gold coins inside. Shogunate officials often conducted sudden tax raids. They would search the house for hidden wealth. The clever step chests kept the money safe. The officials would just walk right over the gold. Today, these stepped cabinets sit quietly in heritage homes. The wood is worn smooth from years of use. You can pull out a drawer and find the secret floor. The clever hiding spots are empty now. The rulers had their own hidden projects. Beneath the streets of Kanazawa runs a secret waterway. It is called the Tatsumi Yosui. This is a 17th century underground aqueduct. Workers secretly tunneled it right through solid rock. The tunnel brought fresh, clean water directly into the castle grounds. It also doubled as a hidden moat for defense. The builders carved the narrow passage by hand in the dark. Today, the rough stone tunnel still exists deep underground. A shallow stream of clear water flows along the bottom. The air down here is cool and damp. Faint modern maintenance lights illuminate the deep shadows. The water moves with a quiet, steady sound. Most people walking on the streets above have no idea it is there. The secret river just keeps flowing. It is a hidden vein of life, running beneath the concrete of the modern city. Kanazawa hides another military secret in plain sight. The Myaryuji Temple is a quiet place of worship. But locals know it as the Ninja Temple. The rulers secretly built it as a hidden military outpost. They needed a place to gather troops without alerting the shogun. The building is full of tricks. Seemingly normal sliding paper doors pull back to reveal steep, hidden wooden staircases. The floors contain hidden pit traps. From the outside, the roof is designed to look like a simple two-story building. But the clever architecture actually hides 4 complete floors inside. The extra rooms could hold dozens of armed guards. The interior is dimly lit and full of shadows. The wooden floors creak softly underfoot. It feels like a puzzle box made of timber. The temple was ready for a war that never came. Now, it just guards its quiet secrets. Far away in the Goto Islands, hidden rooms served a different purpose. During the feudal era, there was a strict ban on Christianity. Believers faced terrible punishment if they were caught. So the hidden Christians built secret spaces in their rural farmhouses. They constructed tiny dark alcoves behind false wooden walls. In these hidden rooms, they concealed small statues of the Virgin Mary. To stay safe, they disguised the statues to look like the Buddhist deity Kannon. The figures were carved from weathered stone. They looked just like traditional Buddhist icons to any passing guard. But the families knew the truth. Today, you can visit these rustic wooden farmhouses. A sliding wooden panel might be left slightly ajar. It reveals the tiny dark space inside. The small stone statues still sit in the shadows. They are quiet monuments to faith and survival in a dangerous time. In the ancient city of Nara, a massive temple offers a different kind of salvation. Tadaiji is home to a gigantic bronze Buddha. The wooden building that houses it is enormous. Huge, smooth wooden pillars support the towering roof. One of these massive pillars has a strange feature. There is a rectangular hole carved right through its base. The hole is exactly the size of the Great Buddha's nostril. A local legend says that squeezing through this tight space grants enlightenment. For centuries, people have crawled through the dark opening. The polished wood inside the hole is worn completely smooth. It feels soft to the touch. The temple is dimly lit and smells of incense. Visitors still line up to try the passage today. It is a small moment of joy in a very solemn place. The giant pillar stands firm, offering a tiny door to wisdom. Another famous temple relies on incredible engineering to stay standing. The massive wooden stage of Kiyomizudera juts out over a steep cliff. It offers a stunning view of the forested hillside. The structure is supported by 139 giant Zelkova pillars. The builders assembled this complex lattice without using a single nail. They used a traditional joinery technique called kigumi. The unpainted wooden beams interlock perfectly. This nail-free design is incredibly strong. It also allows the entire massive structure to sway safely during earthquakes. The wood can flex and move with the shaking ground. If you stand beneath the stage, you can look up at the towering pillars. The complex crossbeams look like a giant wooden puzzle. The wood is weathered and gray now. The stage has floated above the trees for centuries. It rides the moving earth like a ship on the ocean. Deep in the mountains, rural farmers used similar techniques to survive the winter. The village of Shirakawa-go is famous for its massive A-frame farmhouses. The huge thatched roofs are built entirely without nails. The builders used only flexible hazel branches and thick straw ropes. They tied the heavy, smoke-blackened wooden beams together by hand. This flexible design is vital for survival here. In the winter, meters of heavy snow bury the village. A rigid roof would snap under the crushing weight. But these tied beams can flex and bend. The whole structure shifts slightly to carry the load. Today, you can climb into the dark interior attic of a farmhouse. A single modern light bulb illuminates the intricate ropes. The air smells strongly of old wood smoke. The thick beams look like the ribs of a great ship. They hold the heavy snow at bay year after year. In the quiet town of Kakunodate, the streets hold small memories of the warrior class. This area was once a bustling samurai district. Tall, weathered stone walls line the roads. Soft, dappled sunlight filters through overhanging cherry trees. If you look closely at the mossy stones, you will see something small. Small, rusted iron rings are embedded directly into the walls. These are called komatsunagi. They are ancient horse tethers. Centuries ago, visiting warriors would tie their horses to these rings. They would leave the animals waiting outside while they conducted official business inside the residences. The samurai are long gone now. The grand houses are quiet museums. But the little iron rings remain. They are rough and rusted from years of rain. They wait patiently in the stone. They are tiny anchors to a time when horses stamped their hooves on these dirt roads. Those horses often traveled on great highways that connected the country. The Nakasendo was one of these vital mountain routes. It wound through steep passes and deep forests. During the rainy season, the dirt trails turned into impassable mud. To fix this, workers laid down sections of stone paving. They called this ishidatami. They used irregularly shaped stones to create a solid path. Today, much of the old route is covered by modern asphalt. But in quiet forest areas, the original stones remain intact. The modern dirt and gravel suddenly give way to ancient paving. The stones are covered in soft green moss now. Tall trees cast deep shade over the trail. You can walk up the steep hill on the exact same rocks the samurai used. The stones are uneven and worn smooth by thousands of footsteps. They still guide travelers safely through the mountains. Along these mountain routes, post towns offered shelter to weary travelers. Narajuku was a busy stop on the highway. The town is lined with dark wooden traditional inns. The weather in the mountains is often harsh. Heavy rain can fall for days. The builders of these inns designed a clever solution. The second floors of the buildings intentionally overhang the first floors by several feet. This creates a continuous covered walkway along the street. Travelers could walk through the entire town without getting wet. Today, the quiet paved street still features these heavy eaves. They jut out over the ground floor, casting deep shadows. At twilight, the modern pavement looks dark and calm. The overhanging roofs still offer shelter from the sudden mountain showers. The town feels welcoming and safe. The architecture itself reaches out to protect anyone walking down the road. All of those ancient roads eventually led to one specific place. In feudal Japan, all distances were measured from a single point. That 0-mile marker was a wooden bridge called Nihonbashi. It stood in the center of the capital. Today, the wooden span is gone. An elegant stone bridge from 1911 sits in its exact place. It has ornate bronze lampposts and carved arches. But the city did not stop growing. A massive concrete expressway was built directly over the bridge. Now, the historic marker rests in deep shadow. The heavy modern overpass blocks out the sky. Calm water flows quietly below the stone arches. Cars roar overhead on the highway. It is a strange, beautiful collision of eras. The exact center of the old world is hiding under the concrete of the new one. The city just built another layer on top of its history. Long before dawn in the Nanzenji district of Kyoto, a quiet rhythm begins. Small shops start the steaming process of making fresh tofu. The air fills with a warm, sweet scent. This daily work is born from a very old tradition. Centuries ago, the Zen monks in this area followed a strict vegetarian diet. They needed simple, nourishing food. Local makers learned to craft tofu with great care. Today you can still see thick white steam rising from large metal vats. Workers gently scoop the soft curds into wooden molds. They move with a practiced grace. The streets outside remain dark and silent. Inside, warm light spills across the wet floors. It is a peaceful way to start the day. The city is still sleeping, but the hands of the makers are already busy. They repeat the same gentle motions their ancestors did. The past lives on in these quiet morning hours. As the sun rises over Kamakura, another morning chore begins. At the Kenchoji temple, the first sound you hear is a rhythmic scratching. A monk is sweeping the wide stone steps with a bamboo broom. The long, bristly branches pull fallen leaves across the mossy paths. This is not just a cleaning task. It is a deep, meditative practice. The steady motion helps to clear the mind. It prepares the spirit for the day ahead. The sound echoes softly against the old wooden gates. The air is still cool and thick with mist. Each sweep of the broom leaves a clean trail on the damp stone. The work is slow and deliberate. There is no rush to finish. The act of sweeping is just as important as the clean path it leaves behind. You can feel a deep sense of calm settling over the grounds. The simple rhythm grounds the soul in the present moment. Back in the old capital, a similar quiet focus takes place at Ryoanji. Before the heavy wooden gates open to visitors, the monks step into the dry landscape garden. They begin the daily chore of raking the white gravel. They pull a wide wooden rake through the small stones. The tool leaves deep, perfect grooves behind it. They create unbroken ripples that flow around the ancient rocks. This careful work requires a steady hand and a clear mind. The lines must be smooth and even. The garden is meant to inspire deep thought and stillness. The act of maintaining it is a form of moving meditation. The soft crunch of the gravel is the only sound in the walled courtyard. The cool morning light casts gentle shadows across the raked patterns. It is a brief, private moment of creation. Soon, the crowds will arrive. For now, the garden belongs only to the monks. Just south of the city, the town of Uji wakes up to a different kind of focus. Here, early morning tea auctions take place in near silence. Buyers gather in bright warehouse spaces to inspect the fresh harvest. They look closely at the vibrant green matcha leaves. They evaluate the quality by sight and smell alone. There is no loud shouting or frantic bidding. The trade is conducted with subtle nods and quiet gestures. This high-stakes market has a very long history. It was established centuries ago through the direct patronage of the shogunate. The warlords demanded the finest tea for their ceremonies. That demand created a culture of absolute perfection. Today, buyers still treat the leaves with deep respect. They gently sift the tea in small black trays. The lights shine down on the bright green piles. The quiet tension in the room is heavy. Every silent choice honors a very old legacy. On a wide street called Shijodori, a massive morning effort happens without a sound. The famous Gion Matsuri parade has just ended. Towering, multi-story wooden floats still sit on the pavement. Now, clean-up crews arrive to take them apart. They work swiftly and quietly in the early light. They do not use modern power tools or heavy cranes. Instead, they rely on a centuries-old technique. They dismantle the massive structures, using only thick straw ropes. Workers carefully untie the complex knots. They lower the heavy wooden beams, piece by piece. The teamwork is smooth and perfectly timed. Everyone knows exactly where to stand and what to pull. It is a quiet dance of strength and skill. By noon, the giant floats will be completely gone. The modern street will look entirely empty again. The grand festival vanishes like a dream. The city simply folds up its history and puts it away for another year. As the morning turns to day, the covered arcades of Nishiki Market come alive. The narrow walkway glows with warm lights. Shopkeepers stand behind counters piled high with fresh seafood and pickled vegetables. They call out to the passing crowds in a rhythmic, melodic chant. This vocal tradition is known as yobikomi. It is not just simple shouting. The calls have a very specific cadence and energy. They echo the exact cries that merchant families used in these same streets centuries ago. The voices rise and fall like a song. They blend together into a lively, comforting hum. The sound wraps around you as you walk past the stalls. It makes the busy market feel deeply human. The vendors are inviting you into their world. They are sharing the pride they take in their food. The modern shoppers move along the paved path. The ancient merchant spirit still rings out clearly above their heads. Far to the north in Morioka, a different kind of food rhythm takes over. Inside brightly lit restaurants, servers stand ready with trays of tiny red bowls. They serve a dish called wanko soba. The pace is frantic and highly rhythmic. The second your bowl is empty, a server tosses in another bite-sized portion of noodles. They chant encouragement as they drop the food. This lively tradition has a very practical origin. Long ago, massive retinues of visiting samurai would pass through the area. The local hosts needed a way to feed hundreds of hungry warriors very quickly. Serving tiny continuous portions was the most efficient method. Today, the practice is a fun, energetic challenge. The servers move with incredible speed and precision. The empty bowls stack up higher and higher on the table. It is a joyful, noisy ritual. The old need for speed has become a warm display of local hospitality. Down on the southern coast, the city of Hamamatsu offers a slower, richer meal. The air here often carries the smoky scent of grilling eel, known as unagi. Inside the local kitchens, thick fillets sizzle over hot charcoal. Chefs brush them with a dark, sweet glaze. The savory smoke rises up into the exhaust hoods. This famous dish is a direct legacy of the old Tokaido Road. Centuries ago, weary travelers walked this long coastal route to reach Edo. The journey was hard and exhausting. The local eel had a very high fat content. It provided the essential stamina the travelers needed to keep walking. The dish became incredibly popular at the local rest stops. Today, the slow grilling process remains a careful art. The chefs watch the flames closely to prevent burning. The rich smell still promises comfort and strength. It is a taste of the old highway, preserved on a modern plate. In the quiet mountains of Yoshino, another old food tradition survives. People here prepare a special dish called kaki no hazushi. They take neat rectangular blocks of sushi rice and topped with fish. Then, they tightly fold them into vibrant green and brown persimmon leaves. The leaves wrap around the food like small, perfect gifts. This is not just for decoration. It is a clever preservation method from the feudal era. The inland capital was very far from the ocean. Fresh seafood would spoil during the long journey. The locals learned to salt the mackerel heavily. The persimmon leaves provided natural antibacterial properties. This allowed the fish to survive the trip from the sea to the mountains. Today, you can watch the makers fold the leaves with quick, precise motions. The modern wooden counters look much like the old ones. The simple, earthy smell of the leaves blends with the sharp scent of vinegar. Just outside the busy streets of Osaka, the town of Minoru has a very strange snack. During the autumn months, local stalls sell deep-fried maple leaves. Vendors dip the real, preserved leaves into a sweet, thick batter. They drop them into vats of bubbling hot oil. The leaves turn a beautiful golden brown. They are scooped out and piled high on wire racks. This hyper-local ritual is said to have a very old origin. An ascetic wandering through the mountains allegedly invented the treat. The recipe was then perfected during the Edo period. It was a way to celebrate the changing colors of the autumn foliage. The snack is crunchy, sweet and slightly earthy. The shape of the leaf is perfectly preserved inside the fried shell. It is a quiet, joyful way to eat the seasons. The warm smell of frying batter fills the cool mountain air. The old tradition still brings a simple delight. Far to the west, the port city of Nagasaki has its own unique way of eating. In brightly lit restaurants, diners sit around large red lacquered tables. They share food from massive central platters. This communal style is called shippoku cuisine. It completely breaks the traditional Japanese rules of dining. Usually, food is served in small, individual bowls. But this city has a very different history. For centuries, it was the only port open to the outside world. The culture blended Japanese, Chinese, and Dutch influences together. The shared platters reflect this rich, mixed heritage. Diners reach across the table to serve themselves. The dishes are colorful and diverse. You might find rich pork belly next to delicate sashimi. The atmosphere is warm, relaxed, and deeply social. The round tables encourage conversation and connection. It is a beautiful example of how a city absorbs the world. The port's history is served on every plate. Back in the quiet tatami rooms of the old capital, a much stricter ritual takes place. The tea ceremony, or chunno yu, is performed with precise choreographed movements. The host uses a bamboo whisk to froth bright green matcha in a rustic bowl. The room is dimly lit by soft, diffused daylight. Every gesture is careful and deliberate. The rules of this practice remain exactly as they were codified in the 16th century. The great master Sen no Rikyu designed this ritual of hospitality. He created it to enforce a sense of absolute equality. When powerful samurai entered the small tea room, they had to leave their swords outside. Inside, everyone was simply a guest. The simple, minimalist space stripped away all worldly rank. Today, the host still moves with that same quiet grace. The sound of the whisk against the ceramic bowl is incredibly soothing. It is a peaceful pause in a busy world. In the high-end department stores of Tokyo, a different kind of careful folding survives. Behind glass retail counters, clerks perform a meticulous wrapping ritual. They use beautiful squares of cloth called furoshiki to bundle the purchases. The clerk's hands move expertly over the fabric. They tie the final knot with a practiced, elegant pull. The patterned silk wraps snugly around the rectangular boxes. This is not just a luxury service. It preserves a very practical, sustainable practice from the Edo period. Long before paper or plastic bags existed, people used these cloth squares to carry their goods. The fabric could be tied in countless ways to hold any shape. When the journey was over, the cloth was simply folded up and saved. Today, warm boutique lighting shines down on the vibrant fabrics. The old method still feels incredibly refined. It is a quiet moment of care before you step back into the busy city. In the old merchant district of Naramachi, the changing of the seasons is marked by a simple fabric. Shop owners hang dividers called noren in their doorways. These curtains tell you exactly what time of year it is. In the cold winter months, the shops hang heavy, dark cotton. The thick fabric keeps the bitter wind out and the warmth inside. But as the humid summer approaches, the ritual changes. The owners take down the heavy cotton and hang breezy white hemp. The crisp, semi-transparent curtains gently blow in the summer breeze. You can see the blurred interior of the store right through them. This simple switch changes the whole feeling of the street. It makes the heavy air feel a little lighter. The practice connects the modern shops to the natural rhythms of the weather. It is a quiet, visual cue that the earth is turning. The city breathes with the fabric. Deep in the mountains of Gifu, the town of Seki pulses with a much heavier rhythm. Inside dark, soot-stained forges, the air is incredibly hot. The bright orange glow of a furnace lights up the room. Two smiths stand over an anvil, holding heavy hammers. They strike a glowing piece of Tamahagan steel in alternating, rhythmic blows. The deafening sound rings out into the street. Sparks fly through the air with every hit. This intense, physical ritual continues an 800-year-old lineage of swordsmithing. The work requires perfect synchronization between the master and the apprentice. They do not speak while they hammer. They simply listen to the sound of the metal and the breathing of their partner. The steel is folded and flattened over and over again. It is a brutal, exhausting process that creates something perfectly sharp. The modern world moves fast outside, but inside the forge time is measured only by the hammer. In the town of Kawagué, time is still kept by a very old voice. A tall, dark wooden bell tower rises high above the modern cars and power lines. It is called the Toki no Kane, or the Time Bell Tower. 4 times a day, the heavy wooden striking beam swings back. It hits the bronze bell with a deep, resonant boom. The sound echoes out over the busy streets. It dictates the rhythm of the town, just as it has since the Edo period. Long ago, people relied on this bell to know when to work and when to rest. Today, everyone has a clock in their pocket. But the town still pauses to listen. The deep vibration cuts right through the noise of modern traffic. It is a comforting, familiar sound. The tower stands silhouetted against the clear blue sky. It reminds the people below that some rhythms never really need to change. As the late afternoon heat settles over Kanazawa, a cooling ritual begins. In the Higashi-Chiya district, shop owners step outside their traditional wooden doors. They carry wooden ladles and small buckets of water. They perform a practice called uchimizu. They gently splash the water onto the hot asphalt of the paved street. The water leaves dark, wet patches on the ground. As it evaporates, it pulls the heat out of the air. This simple Edo period practice cools the neighborhood down. It also settles the dry dust before the evening customers arrive. The rhythmic splashing sound is very peaceful. It signals the end of the hot afternoon and the beginning of the cool dusk. The wet pavement reflects the fading light of the sky. The air suddenly smells fresh and clean, like a brief summer rain. It is a small, thoughtful gesture. The owners are preparing the street to welcome the night. When dusk finally falls in Gion, a warmer light takes over. The narrow, paved alleyways begin to glow. Outside the dark wooden tea houses, a daily ritual is quietly performed. Someone steps out to turn on the lights inside the red paper lanterns. They hang in neat rows along the eaves. This simple act signals the beginning of the evening's engagements. The warm red glow spills out over the wet stone streets. It creates a soft, inviting atmosphere in the twilight. The lanterns have marked the start of the night here for generations. They guide the guests to their hidden doors. The modern city fades away in this soft light. The shadows grow long and deep against the wooden slats. You can hear the faint sound of wooden sandals on the stones. The neighborhood is waking up, just as the rest of the city goes to sleep. The red lanterns promise a night of quiet elegance. In the temple courtyards of Kamakura, dusk brings a different kind of focus. At Engaku-ji, practitioners of Kyudo, or Japanese archery, step into the open-air wooden dojo. They engage in a solitary, silent routine. An archer in traditional hakama stands perfectly still under the soft, overhead lights. They hold a massive, asymmetrical bamboo bow. The focus here is not entirely on hitting the target. Instead, the ritual is about the breathing. It is about the slow, perfect drawing of the bowstring. The archer clears their mind of all distractions. The tension in the bamboo builds slowly and smoothly. The release is sharp and sudden, but the archer remains completely calm. This practice is a moving meditation. It trains the mind as much as the body. The quiet courtyard amplifies the soft snap of the string. The twilight settles over the temple grounds. The archer simply breathes in, and begins the draw again. As evening deepens in the residential areas, a very distinct acoustic rhythm rolls through the streets. It is the nightly clattering of the amado. These are heavy, solid wooden storm doors. People slide them shut along their tracks to close up the house. The rumbling sound echoes from one home to the next. It is a clear signal that the day is officially over. From inside a warmly lit room, you can watch hands pull the wooden panels across the glass. The doors shut out the dark night and the cold wind. They create a safe, enclosed space for the family. This daily chore has not changed in centuries. The heavy wood provides a deep sense of security. The rattling noise might seem loud at first, but to the people who live here, it is a deeply comforting sound. It means that everyone is safely inside. The neighborhood is finally tucking itself in for the night. In the sprawling neighborhoods of Tokyo, the evening rhythm centers around the water. The local sento, or public bath, remains a cornerstone of daily life. Inside, the brightly lit, tiled rooms are peaceful and warm. A classic painted mural of Mount Fuji often decorates the back wall. Large pools of steaming water wait for the guests. This communal gathering space was actually born out of necessity during the Edo period. Back then, private baths were strictly banned in many areas. The wooden city faced a constant, terrifying threat of fire. So people bathed together in safe, designated buildings. Today, the fire bans are gone, but the tradition remains. Neighbors still come here to wash away the stress of the day. They sit in the hot water and chat quietly. The peaceful bathhouse feels like a sanctuary. The steam rises up to the high ceilings. It is a shared comfort in a very big city. On clear autumn nights, a very quiet appreciation takes place at Daikakuji. The old temple observes the seasonal ritual of tsukimi, or moon viewing. A small wooden stand is placed out on the polished veranda. It holds a neat pyramid of white rice dumplings. Beside it sits a vase filled with tall, feathery Suzuki grass. The silver grass sways gently in the night breeze. The display is silhouetted against the bright full harvest moon. This elegant tradition was inherited directly from feudal aristocrats. They would gather to drink sake, write poetry, and admire the reflection of the moon on the water. Today, the practice is much simpler, but the feeling is the same. It is a moment to pause and look up at the sky. The bright moonlight washes over the dark wooden boards. The air is cool and still. The simple offerings honor the beauty of the changing season. The night feels vast and perfectly calm. Deep in the northern mountains, the village of Karama waits for midnight. During the annual fire festival, this quiet town completely transforms. The dark, narrow streets are suddenly illuminated by intense, roaring orange flames. Locals carry massive pine torches through the village. The heavy fires cast wild, dancing shadows on the modern telephone poles and traditional houses. The heat is incredible. This chaotic, energetic ritual recreates a very specific historical event. During the Heian period, a local shrine was relocated to these mountains in the middle of the night. The villagers lit fires to guide the sacred spirits along the dark path. Today, the descendants of those villagers keep the memory alive. The rhythmic chanting and the crackling wood echo through the steep valley. The sparks drift up into the cold night sky. It is a fierce, beautiful display of devotion. The quiet mountain town burns bright for just one night. Back in the Higashichaya district, the late night holds a much softer sound. The cobblestone streets are empty now. A few warm street lamps illuminate the dark, slatted wooden tea houses. From a single glowing window, you can hear the sharp, percussive notes of a shamisen. Someone is practicing the traditional three-stringed instrument late into the night. The music drifts through the wooden slats and out into the cool air. The notes are crisp and slightly melancholy. This exact sound has echoed in these narrow alleys for 200 years. The geisha who work here spend countless hours perfecting their art. The practice requires endless repetition and deep dedication. The quiet night provides the perfect time to focus. The plucking of the strings blends with the distant sound of the wind. It feels as though the old wooden buildings are singing to themselves. The city sleeps, but the music continues to play in the shadows. Long after the restaurants close in Tokyo, a final, quiet ritual takes place. In the commercial kitchens near the old market areas, sushi chefs stand under single bright lights. They perform the meticulous nightly routine of sharpening their knives. They carefully slide the long, gleaming steel blades across wet stones. The rhythmic scraping sound fills the empty stainless steel rooms. This daily maintenance is absolutely essential. It is a habit inherited directly from the fast-paced street stalls of the Edo period. Back then, chefs needed perfectly sharp blades to serve fresh fish quickly to impatient crowds. Today, the tools are still treated with immense respect. The chefs check the edge with their thumbs, feeling for microscopic imperfections. They wash the gray slurry from the stone and begin again. It is a solitary, peaceful way to end a long shift. The sharp blade is finally wiped clean and put away. The city is ready to rest. In the crowded streets of Old Edo, the sheer number of people could be overwhelming. It was easy to lose your way. It was even easier to lose a child. The city solved this problem with tall stone pillars called Myoigo Ishi. You can still find these lost child stones near busy modern intersections. They served as a feudal bulletin board. Panicked parents would write paper notices describing their missing children. They pasted these notes directly onto the rough stone. Passers-by would stop and read the descriptions. If someone found a wandering child, they would pin a reply to the same pillar. It was a simple system built on community trust. The stone stood quietly in the noise of the capital. It offered a small point of hope for separated families. Today, the weathered pillars blend into the modern pavement. They are quiet reminders of a sprawling city trying to care for its own. News moved quickly through those same busy streets. The people of the capital were always hungry for gossip. Street vendors met this demand with early tabloid newspapers known as kawaraban. These tile prints were cheap and easy to make. Printers used soft woodblocks to carve the latest stories. They worked fast to capture scandals, natural disasters, and strange local events. The carved blocks were quickly inked and pressed onto thin paper. This mass production meant news could hit the streets in hours. Vendors would stand on corners and sing out the headlines. They drew large crowds of curious listeners. The prints were not meant to last. They were read, shared, and thrown away. Yet they captured the daily pulse of the city perfectly. You can almost hear the vendors shouting over the crowd. These fragile sheets of paper turned a massive population into a connected public. They shared the same stories at the exact same time. Moving heavy goods through these neighborhoods required a special approach. The city strictly banned heavy carts, drawn by oxen or horses. The government wanted to protect the fragile, unpaved dirt roads from deep ruts. This rule forced merchants to rely on human power instead. They used massive wooden wagons called daihachi guruma. These hand-pulled carts had large, sturdy spoked wheels. Teams of laborers would pull them through the narrow alleys. They hauled massive loads of timber, rice and trade goods. It was back-breaking work that defined the rhythm of the streets. You can still see these beautiful wooden wagons in local museums. They sit quietly under soft lights. Without animal carts, the city sounded very different. There was no clatter of hooves on the main avenues. Instead, you heard the heavy creak of wooden wheels. You heard the rhythmic shouts of the men pulling the loads. The city moved entirely on the strength of its people. The capital was surprisingly clean for such a massive place. This cleanliness came from a highly organized system of waste management. Merchants actually paid good money to buy human waste from public toilets. They called this valuable resource night soil. These workers carried sealed wooden buckets on long poles. They transported the waste out of the crowded neighborhoods. They sold it directly to farmers in the surrounding countryside. The farmers prized it as a rich, effective fertilizer for their crops. This trade created a perfect ecological loop. The city fed the farms, and the farms fed the city. It also kept the urban streets free of filth and disease. Other global cities of the time struggled with terrible sanitation. This capital stayed fresh and healthy through simple economics. The waste had real value. You can see the carrying buckets preserved in modern exhibits. They represent a quiet, brilliant solution to a very messy human problem. Keeping the streets clean was easy compared to keeping them safe. Fire was the greatest threat to the wooden capital. The government built tall wooden watchtowers called yagura to spot smoke. These structures were strictly regulated by class and rank. Only the official towers of the shogunate could be built truly high. They were legally allowed to rise above the endless sea of rooftops. Private citizens and lower-ranking lords had to build shorter towers. This rule ensured the government always had the best view. Guards stood watch day and night in the high wooden boxes. They looked for the first faint wisp of grey smoke. Today, a few of these narrow towers still stand. They look incredibly small next to modern concrete apartment buildings. But back then, they were the tallest points in the sky. They offered a vital, sweeping view of a fragile city. The safety of millions depended on the eyes in those towers. The fear of fire shaped daily life in strange ways. The government passed a desperate law to protect the wooden houses. Every citizen had to keep wooden buckets of water on their roof. These simple buckets sat precariously on the heavy ceramic tiles. They were meant to stop fires from spreading through flying embers. If a spark landed on a roof, the water was right there. In reality, this regulation was mostly futile. The massive city fires burned far too hot for a few buckets. The flames would leap across entire blocks in minutes. Still, the law remained strictly in place. It gave the anxious residents a small sense of control. You can see replicas of these roof buckets today. They sit against the modern skyline like forgotten toys. They are a quiet reminder of the constant danger. The people lived with the wind, always watching the sky for a stray glowing spark. People also looked for magical ways to protect their homes. Castles and important buildings featured golden statues on their highest roofs. These gleaming figures were called shachihoko. They had the body of a carp and the head of a tiger. They were not just decorative symbols of wealth and power. They were mythical water beasts with a very specific job. Folklore said these creatures could summon rain from the sky. The builders placed them high up to protect the vulnerable wooden structures. If a fire broke out, the beasts would call down a sudden storm. The golden tails curved sharply upward into the blue sky. They looked ready to dive into the clouds at any moment. You can still see them shining on castle roofs today. They catch the late afternoon light beautifully. They stand as silent, hopeful guardians. The city trusted these golden fish to keep the devastating flames at bay. Some roofs carried a different kind of powerful protection. Certain temples displayed a specific symbol on their dark ceramic tiles. This was the kikumon, the intricate crest of the imperial chrysanthemum. It was a beautiful design with many delicate petals. This flower was much more than a simple decoration. It provided absolute legal protection from the ruling shogunate. The military government often raided temples to assert their dominance. But they could not touch a building with this crest. Attacking a roof with the chrysanthemum would be a direct insult to the emperor. It was a clever political shield made of baked clay. The monks could live and pray in total peace. You can still spot these circular end tiles against the sky today. They sit quietly on the edges of ancient roofs. They are a subtle reminder of the quiet power struggles of the past. A simple flower held back entire armies. Beneath those protective roofs, the citizens found clever ways to build. Strict sumptuary laws controlled exactly how people could live. Commoners were initially banned from building full two-story houses. The government wanted to keep the merchant class humble and low. But the wealthy merchants needed more space for their goods. They solved this problem by inventing the sushi Nikai. This was a hidden, low-ceilinged second floor tucked just under the roof. From the outside, the house looked like a standard single-story building. It had a very narrow dark window near the top. Inside, it provided valuable extra storage space. The merchants followed the letter of the law, while completely ignoring its spirit. You can still see these clever designs in preserved historic districts. The dark wooden siding hides the secret rooms perfectly. It was a quiet rebellion built into the architecture itself. The city always found a way to grow in the shadows. Inside these wooden houses, the floors followed their own strict rules. The rooms were measured entirely by the number of tatami mats. These woven grass mats provided a soft, fragrant surface for daily life. But the standard width of a mat was not the same everywhere. The size actually depended on which city you lived in. Mats made in Kyoto were slightly larger than those made in Edo. This created a strange architectural divide between the regions. A traditional house built in the eastern capital had smaller floor plans. You literally could not use a Kyoto mat in a Tokyo home. It simply would not fit inside the wooden frames. Modern workshops still produce these fresh, green mats today. You can see the tape measures stretched across the woven grass. The dimensions carry the history of two very different cities. Even the floor beneath your feet tells a story of local pride. The government also tried to control what people wore. Strict laws banned merchants from wearing flashy colors or expensive fabrics. The ruling class wanted to maintain a clear visual hierarchy. The wealthy merchants responded by inventing a clever concept called iki. This was the art of subtle, hidden luxury. They wore plain, drab brown or grey robes on the outside. They looked perfectly humble and obedient to the passing guards. But inside, the robes hid wildly expensive, vibrantly patterned silk linings. A dull grey hem might flip up to reveal a stunning dragon. A plain brown sleeve might hide a bright, colourful landscape. It was a private joke, shared among the wealthy commoners. They followed the strict rules, while secretly mocking them. You can see these clever garments in modern museum displays. The beautiful silk remains hidden until you look very closely. True style was something you kept entirely to yourself. While clothes hid secrets, faces displayed status very openly. Married women and aristocrats practiced a custom called ohaguro. This was the deliberate blackening of their teeth. They dyed their teeth pitch black to show their high social standing. The process required a foul-smelling mixture of iron filings and vinegar. They applied this dark liquid very carefully, with small brushes. The deep black color was considered incredibly elegant and beautiful. It also had a practical benefit for daily health. The iron mixture actually helped prevent tooth decay. A perfectly black smile was a sign of maturity and grace. Today you can see the elegant cosmetic tools in art museums. The black, lacquered bowls and tiny jars sit under soft spotlights. They look like delicate instruments for a forgotten ritual. The practice slowly faded away as the modern era arrived. But for centuries, a dark smile was the height of refined beauty. Sometimes, the laws of the capital went from strict to truly bizarre. The ruler Tokugawa Tsunayoshi earned the nickname of the Dog Shogun. He passed extreme laws mandating the absolute protection of stray dogs. Harming a street dog became a severe crime with terrible punishments. The city suddenly had to treat wandering animals like royalty. The government even built massive, luxurious dog shelters using taxpayer money. These sprawling complexes housed tens of thousands of stray animals. The dogs were fed well and treated with deep respect. The citizens grumbled quietly about the massive expense. It was a strange time to be a dog in the capital. Today, you can find a small bronze statue in a quiet park. It shows a group of plump, happy dogs under the cherry trees. It is a whimsical reminder of a very strange era. The city still remembers the ruler who loved dogs a little too much. Paying for those massive dog shelters required a lot of gold. The busy economy ran on beautiful oval-shaped gold coins called koban. These coins were not perfectly smooth like modern money. They were intentionally minted with a slightly rough, horizontally ribbed texture. This delicate surface pattern was known as gozame. It looked like the woven texture of a traditional grass mat. This design was actually a clever security feature. It ensured the physical integrity of the precious metal. If a thief tried to shave gold off the edges, the pattern would break. Any tampering became immediately obvious to a careful merchant. The ribbed surface kept the currency safe and trusted. You can see these gleaming coins resting on traditional paper today. The delicate lines catch the soft light beautifully. The texture feels rough and real under your thumb. It was a simple, elegant way to keep the city honest. That gold often paid for long journeys out of the capital. The shogunate built a massive highway system to connect the provinces. Along the famous Nakasendo route, they constructed special markers called ichirizuka. These were large earthen mounds placed exactly 1 ri apart. A ri was a standard unit of distance, about 2.5 miles. The government planted spreading inoki or pine trees on top of these mounds. The deep roots held the dirt firmly in place. The wide branches provided a quiet place to rest in the shade. Weary travelers could sit under the leaves and escape the hot sun. The mounds marked the slow, steady progress of a long walk. You can still find these peaceful dirt roads winding through the mountains. The ancient trees still offer shade to anyone passing by. They are living milestones from a slower time. They made the vast, rugged country feel a little more welcoming. Traveling along these highways was not always easy or free. The government set up strict checkpoints known as sekisho. These wooden buildings guarded the borders between different regions. Guards stopped everyone to check their travel papers and their cargo. They were especially worried about smuggled weapons or secret messages. To stop this, the checkpoints employed specially trained female inspectors. These women had a very specific and delicate job. They dismantled and searched the elaborate hairstyles of passing female travelers. A complex bun could easily hide a small blade or a folded letter. The inspectors combed through the heavy black hair with careful hands. Today, you can visit reconstructed checkpoint buildings by calm lakes. The stark, empty tatami rooms look peaceful now, but they were once places of deep anxiety and strict control. Every traveler had to prove they belonged on the road. The government watched every single step. Wealthy travelers rarely walked through these checkpoints on their own feet. They hired strong bearers to carry them in woven bamboo palanquins. These small, suspended cabins were called keigo. 2 men would hoist the thick wooden carrying pole onto their shoulders. They walked for miles over rough, uneven mountain passes. To make the journey smoother, the bearers developed a specific grunting language. They used rhythmic sounds to communicate without speaking full words. A certain grunt would warn the man behind about a deep pothole. Another sound would signal a shift in the passenger's weight. They kept a steady, hypnotic pace through the forests. You can see these beautifully preserved palanquins in modern museums. They hang quietly from their thick wooden poles. You can almost hear the rhythmic breathing of the men who carried them. It was a hard life built on perfect, unspoken teamwork. The road required constant attention. Sometimes, the landscape itself was altered to help these bearers. The journey to the Kunozan Toshogu shrine required climbing a steep mountain. The path was lined with wide, heavy stone steps. But these steps were carved at a deliberately shallow angle. The builders designed them specifically for the men carrying the wooden palanquins. A normal staircase would force the bearers to tilt backward. This would make the high-ranking lords inside very uncomfortable. The shallow steps allowed the men to walk smoothly and stay level. They could carry their heavy loads up the mountain without breaking stride. You can still walk this serene forested path today. The ancient trees and mossy stone lanterns frame the wide stones. The climb feels surprisingly gentle and unhurried. It is a quiet piece of engineering hidden in the woods. The mountain was reshaped just to keep a few powerful men perfectly comfortable. Some travelers were looking for a desperate escape. The Tokeiji Temple in Kamakura offered a rare kind of sanctuary. It was officially recognized by the government as a divorce temple. In feudal society, a woman had very few legal rights. She could not easily leave an abusive or unhappy marriage. But this quiet temple provided a legal way out. A woman could flee here and claim protection behind the wooden gates. If she served peacefully as a nun for 3 years, she earned her freedom. Her marriage was officially dissolved by the temple's authority. The moss-covered stone steps still lead up to those same gates today. The lush green foliage creates a deep sense of quiet safety. It remains a beautiful, deeply tranquil place. For centuries, it was the only safe harbor for women with nowhere else to go. Temples and shrines always had their own unique protectors. Most Shinto shrines are guarded by fierce stone lion dogs. But the high shrine in the capital chose a very different path. This peaceful sanctuary is protected by statues of monkeys. These gentle figures are known to the locals as Masaru. They are revered as divine messengers of the gods. The people believed these monkeys could ward off evil spirits. They were also thought to bring peaceful fortune to the growing city. You can see these serene stone statues sitting quietly on their pedestals. One monkey gently holds a small baby in its arms. They look out over the ancient cedar trees with calm, steady eyes. They do not look fierce or angry at all. They offer a soft, welcoming kind of protection. The city trusted these quiet animals to keep the darkness away. They still watch over the busy modern streets today. Other shrines relied on sharper animals to guard their wealth. The famous Inari shrines are always protected by stone fox statues. These sharp foxes wear bright red bibs and sit at the entrance. If you look closely, you will see many of them holding something. They often grip a carved cylindrical object firmly in their mouths. This is not a mystical symbol or a magic wand. It represents the actual physical key to the local rice granaries. Rice was the true wealth of the feudal era. The foxes were supposed to protect these vital storehouses from hungry rodents. They were the spiritual pest control for the community's food supply. You can see these weathered stone keys at shrines today. The bright vermilion gates blur softly in the background. The foxes sit perfectly still, holding the wealth of the village in their teeth. They never drop their quiet guard. Spirits and demons required a different kind of defense. Traditional gardens used clever wooden architecture to keep evil away. You will often see low wooden plank bridges crossing the shallow ponds. These bridges are called yatsuhashi, and they are built in a specific way. They never cross the water in a straight, simple line. Instead, they sharply zigzag back and forth over the blooming irises. This beautiful design comes directly from old local folklore. The people believed that evil spirits could only travel in straight lines. A demon could not navigate the sharp, sudden turns of the wooden planks. If a spirit tried to cross, it would fall straight into the water. The zigzag path forced you to slow down and walk carefully. It made you appreciate the lush green foliage all around you. The garden protected your soul while calming your mind. The quiet beauty was the defense. These gardens also hid beautiful secrets beneath the ground. In a quiet corner, you might find a stone water basin. A small puddle of water gathers on the smooth pebbles below it. If you listen closely, you will hear a delicate, echoing sound. It sounds like a tiny bell ringing deep in the earth. This is a bizarre and wonderful feature called a suikinkutsu. It is actually a large earthen jar buried upside down in the dirt. The jar has a small hole carefully poked in the top. As water drips down from the basin, it falls through the hole. The drops hit the small pool of water inside the buried jar. The shape of the clay amplifies the sound into a musical note. It is a hidden acoustic instrument, played by gravity and water. The garden sings to you from beneath the moss. You just have to be quiet enough to hear it. That same appreciation for subtle beauty shaped the objects used every day. Traditional Japanese teacups are rarely perfectly round or smooth. They are often deliberately warped, uneven, or asymmetrical. The potters intentionally ruined the perfect symmetry of their wet clay. They believed that flawless objects were arrogant and cold. A perfect cup was considered an insult to the natural world. Nature is full of beautiful flaws, and art should reflect that truth. You can see this philosophy in rustic ceramic cups today. The thick walls feature beautiful, dripping glazes that form random patterns. The rim is noticeably uneven against your lip when you drink. The heavy cup feels warm and wonderfully human in your hands. It reminds you that nothing lasts forever, and nothing is truly perfect. The true beauty always lies in the slight, deliberate mistakes. It makes a simple, quiet cup of tea feel deeply grounding. A perfect cup of tea requires a delicate sweet to match. One of the most famous treats is the uguisu mochi, or nightingale sweet. It is a soft, pale green confection shaped like a small resting bird. The story of this sweet begins with a powerful warlord's brother. He commissioned a local sweets maker to create something entirely new. He wanted to impress the great leader Toyotomi Hideyoshi at a tea ceremony. The sweets maker carefully crafted the green mochi to look like a spring bird. Hideyoshi was absolutely delighted by the beautiful, simple treat. He loved it so much that he named it himself. Today you can find these delicate sweets in traditional shops. They rest on small ceramic plates next to steaming cups of matcha. The pale green color looks beautiful against the dark wooden tables. It is a tiny, edible piece of history. The sweet taste of the past is still here. Our walk through feudal Japan is coming to an end. Wherever you've drifted to, you don't need to come back. There's nothing more to listen for tonight. Sleep well.